Hi guys, it's Michelle, and today's video is going to be yet another reincarnation stories video for you guys. Y'all know I feel like reincarnation really scares the shit out of me. Whenever I think of it, I get kind of sad at the prospects of like not remembering your past life, if that makes sense. Also, it really creeps me out that there are kids who just genuinely remember their past life, and I don't feel like there's any other way to explain it other than reincarnation being real. I'll say it. I don't know. Today's video is slightly different because we're going to talk about different kids who remember their past lives as different celebrities or like just famous people in general. I think that's when things get really interesting, just because a lot of the times these kids will talk to various family members of the deceased like celebrity, and I think that's cool. So let's get into it. The first story that we're going to be talking about has to do with a 5-year-old Billy Campbell from Australia who claims that he is the reincarnation of none other than Princess Diana. When Billy was around 2 years old, he would talk about how he used to be a princess. His parents just assumed that it was just his imagination, and they kind of just wrote it off until one day he pointed at a picture of Princess Diana and said, "Look, it's me when I was a princess." What's interesting about that and freaks me out is that the picture of Princess Diana that he like pointed to, she wasn't wearing like a tiara. She had no indication that she was a princess other than the fact that like we know her as Princess Diana. When you're 2 years old, you don't know who the hell that is. Like, you just don't. And he's Australian, forget about it. Billy would often also talk to his parents about his boys, and he would say that these were his sons. I think that's kind of interesting, like, verbiage for a child, because it's so British to be like, oh, my boys, as in my sons, but I don't feel like in America, like, you don't really say that. I mean, you can, I guess, but like, again, the 2-year-old's not going to have that type of vernacular. Like, it's just not. Australian people, you guys are going to have to let me know if that's like a common phrase by you, because in America, that's not. Billy would even point to photos of Harry and William and say that those were his sons, which again is crazy because a 2-year-old would have no idea that Princess Diana had children or what they looked like. So it's kind of nuts. Billy also said that he used to go to a castle in Scotland. He claimed that the castle had unicorns all on the walls and was called Balmoral. Obviously, I don't even know if it's this obvious, because I feel like most Americans, and I don't know again how popular the royal family is in Australia, I would like to know. I have no idea that this castle existed, the Balmoral Castle. Like, I guess I've heard of it before, but I would never be able to tell you it was in Scotland, and I would never be able to tell you that there were unicorns in it. I have no idea. Apparently, that actually does exist, and it is one of the royal family's castles. How do you explain a child knowing that? Like, I just feel like it makes no sense other than to be a past life. I think one of the scariest things that Billy said was when he was looking at pictures of Princess Diana, and he said, quote, "And then one day the sirens came and I wasn't a princess anymore." Princess Diana died in a car accident, allegedly. I don't know. There's so much conspiracy surrounding Princess Diana's death, and I always thought that she was low-key still alive. Like, I have always believed that theory. So this part obviously kind of debunks that as a whole. She would have to die for him to be reincarnated, obviously. I just feel like this story is a little too interesting to pass up as just like the parents are lying. I never believed that, because it's like, for what? Like a 2-second fame? It just doesn't make sense to me that they would like have their kids lie about this and like be actors. A lot of the time they do some interviews like on a TV show called The Ghost Inside My Child. They're 2 years old, like they're not actors. So like, what is that? I would like to hear you guys' thoughts. Do you think that Billy Campbell could be Princess Diana reincarnated? All right, the next story that we're going to be talking about is all about a boy named Hunter who, when he was 2 years old, received a kid's set of plastic golf clubs, and he was immediately hooked on golf ever since. One day he was watching the Golf Channel with his dad, and a clip from the 1930s aired, and Hunter pointed at Bobby Jones, who was a very successful golfer of the 1920s, and said, "That's me when I was big." Hunter's father started to wonder if his child was remembering a past life as this famous golfer. So Hunter's dad decided to put this theory to the test, and he printed out 6 different photographs of famous golfers of the 1920s and asked him to tell him who Bobby Jones was, and he pointed directly at Bobby Jones and said, "That's me." Something even weirder is that Hunter actually pointed at another one of the photos that his dad showed, like just another random golfer, and said, "That's my friend Harry Garden." And in fact, it was a photo of golfer Harry Vardon, which is just kind of nuts. His dad was obviously floored by this, so he decided to print out photos of different homes, and one of them was Bobby Jones's childhood home. When Hunter looked through the photos, he pointed directly at Bobby Jones's house and said, "That was my house." It's also interesting to note that Hunter's golfing talents also lined up with that of Bobby Jones. He was essentially a prodigy. Like, he was so good at golf. He won 41 out of 51 junior tournaments, and 21 of them were consecutive. Like, just kept winning right in a row, which is honestly pretty insane. Something that's really interesting is people who saw Hunter golfing would go up to his father and be like, his swing is so similar to Bobby Jones. And it's people who didn't even know that this kid was claiming to be the reincarnation of this man. So that is pretty nuts. Hunter also claimed that Augusta is his favorite golf course, and it so happens that Bobby Jones founded and helped design the Augusta National Golf Club. So I just feel like it all fits into place. I 100% believe it. I mean, assuming the parents are telling the truth, which is like the only thing that you can kind of write off with these stories, especially the ones like where we have video footage of the kids like talking about their experience. The fact that the only thing that we can do to like make it better is say that all the parents are lying is still kind of scary in my opinion. I just don't see a purpose of them lying. Like, again, not much fame coming out of this, but maybe I'm wrong. The next story is about a boy named Ryan Hammonds, who was born in Oklahoma in 2004, and when he was 4 years old, he began to express that he used to live in Hollywood and traveled the world, married 5 women, and danced on Broadway. He also recalled working for an agency and claimed that he used to live in a big house with a swimming pool that sat on a street with the name Rock in it. His parents would take him to a Chinese restaurant. He would relay back to them being like, "Oh, I used to go to Chinatown all of the time," and he knew how to use chopsticks without ever being taught. Like, just various things that made his parents question if he had potentially lived before. Then Ryan began to tell his mother that he had seen her in heaven. This is why I don't have children. If my child said that they chose me from heaven, I just would be stressed. Like, I mean, it's kind of sweet, I guess, but still, no. Ryan claimed that the reason that he chose his mom is because they were together in another past life and he wanted to take care of her in this one. This is when Ryan's mom started to really believe that her child was remembering a past life. In order to help Ryan, she decided to research old Hollywood. She got a bunch of books from the library. One night when her and Ryan were looking through the books, they came across a photograph from the movie Night After Night, and he pointed out one of the men in the photos and said, "That's me." Unfortunately, there was no information on who the actors were in the picture, and actor who he pointed to saying was him was not listed in any of the credits on the movie. Like, he was just an extra. This was when Ryan's mom decided to contact Jim Tucker, who was a psychiatrist who was specifically studying children who remember their past lives. Jim Tucker was working with a television agency that wanted to do a story on various children who potentially were reincarnated. Now, Jim Tucker just wasn't like in it for the money kind of vibe. He had been studying reincarnation for 15 years prior to Ryan's family reaching out, so he was really in it and knew a lot about the topic. The TV company ended up flying Ryan out to Los Angeles and hired a film archivist who identified the mystery man in the photo as Marty Martin, who was an actor and talent agent in the early 1920s. Jim Tucker printed out 4 pictures of women. 3 of them were completely random, and he pointed to one of them and said, "This looks familiar to me," and it was none other than Marty Martin's wife, which is kind of crazy. The TV agency actually ended up tracking down Marty Martin's daughter, who was still alive. She was reluctant to talk to Ryan, but after speaking to Jim Tucker, she was able to confirm dozens of details that Ryan had remembered from his past life that she claims no one knew. For example, Ryan said he remembered dancing in New York, and Marty Martin did dance on Broadway. Ryan also recalled being an agent where people would change their name, and obviously agencies like in Hollywood have stage names all the time, and Marty Martin happened to work at one of the most popular talent agencies in Hollywood. Ryan also said that his old address had the name Rock in it, and Marty Martin actually lived at 825 North Roxbury Drive in Beverly Hills. Ryan and Marty's daughter finally met, but it actually didn't go too well. Ryan shook her hand, but then he hid behind his mom. Pretty much the rest of the time, he was just really scared of her, and he even told his mom after the meeting that her energy had changed from when he remembered her from the past life, which is kind of interesting. Like, I feel like we'll never know exactly why that is, but it's kind of weird. After that, Ryan pretty much completely stopped talking about his past life. He didn't want to go back to Hollywood. He just wanted to live his life in the moment and wanted to be with his current family and just be Ryan. And this, according to Jim Tucker, actually happens pretty often with kids who meet the families of the past life that they remember. It's, I guess, some sort of closure. I've even seen it happen when these kids are presented with like the research of who they could have been in the past life, and even that just has enough closure for them to move on with this current lifetime. I find this story to be so interesting because it's not like it was a huge, like, famous person like Princess Diana, for example. Like, this information was like not really out there that much that he was completely remembering. And it's like, why would he pick some random ass like old Hollywood fame? Like, you would have picked like Charlie Chaplin if you were going that route, you know what I mean? Like, this is such a random celebrity. So I just think that that's nuts, and I 100% believe it. And I kind of hate that I believe it because it scares me. The last story we're going to be talking about is one of the most interesting cases of reincarnation that I have ever seen. And it is all about Christian Haupt, who was born in 2009. And according to his mother, Kathy, ever since he was 2 years old, he was completely obsessed with baseball. We've seen this happen a lot with various reincarnation cases, which is just the idea that these children are prodigies at like things that normal children don't know how to do, like golf or baseball. Like, how was he just so good at it? Christian's baseball obsession went to a whole new level. He insisted on carrying a baseball bat everywhere he went. He wanted to wear a baseball uniform and cleats, the whole 9 yards. He was really, really into baseball, which was weird for Christian's family because no one in his family played baseball, talked about baseball, or even cared about baseball until Christian came along. According to his mother, before the time he could walk, he was carrying a baseball bat around. Like, he just loved it. This is when Christian began to talk about how he used to be a tall baseball player. And he also would say things like how when he was big, he didn't wear seatbelts and he drank alcohol and was a very good baseball player. His mother, Kathy, uploaded a video of Christian playing baseball, and it went viral and actually caught the attention of Adam Sandler, who was in the process of filming a baseball themed movie, That's My Boy, in 2016. Adam actually liked the video so much that he invited Christian out to Massachusetts to be a part of the movie, like have a little cameo in it, and of course they accepted. And the movie was being filmed in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And while they were in Massachusetts, Kathy decided to take Christian to a baseball game at Boston's Fenway Park. At the baseball park, Christian saw a picture of Babe Ruth and pointed at him and said, "I do not like him. He was mean to me." Christian became super agitated to the point where they literally had to leave the ballpark after only 2 innings. Christian became more and more adamant that he used to be a big, tall baseball player who ended up injuring his knee and had to take time off from playing. The idea of reincarnation started to come into his mother's mind as Christian would talk more and more about his past life, how he used to play games and stay in hotels almost every night and take the train. And he would say things like they had to play baseball in the daytime because in the olden days there were no lights on the field. Just things that like a young kid is not gonna know. Christian also continued to have an extreme distaste for Babe Ruth. So in an attempt to figure out who Christian could have been in a past life, his mom decided to do some research, printed a photo of the 1927 Yankees team, and asked Christian about the picture, basically. He pointed at Babe Ruth and said, "There is dumb Babe Ruth." And his mom asked him, "Do you think any of the other players didn't like Babe Ruth?" And Christian pointed to a man with dimples and said, "Him." His mom asked, "Do you know him?" And Christian responded and said, "That is me." Christian's mom didn't know who this player was, which I know a lot of people are going to be like, what? Because he ended up being a very famous player, which we'll get to in a second. I wouldn't know who this player is if I just looked at him. I honestly feel like I would barely know what Babe Ruth looks like, but regardless. Kathy ended up just like searching 1927 Yankees, dimples, and discovered that the person who Christian was claiming to be was none other than Lou Gehrig. Christian even had the exact same dimples in the same place that Lou had. Kathy ended up printing out a picture of what she thought was Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig with their arms around each other so she could kind of get her son to stop like hating him so much. And when she showed it to him, she was like, look, Lou and Babe were friends. He pointed at Babe Ruth and said, that's not dumb Babe Ruth, that's the coach. And after his mom researched, she realized that Christian was correct, and the guy next to Lou Gehrig was actually Joe McCarthy, the coach of the Yankees. So Kathy decided to do more research onto why, like what was the drama between Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth, and there was actually quite a deep-rooted history because Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig used to be best friends. They became friends in 1925, and by 1927, Lou Gehrig's parents had essentially treated Babe Ruth like that was their son. They were super close with him. He was at their house all of the time. And even Babe Ruth himself felt like the Gehrigs were second parents to him because he actually didn't have parents of his own. He was an orphan. Babe Ruth got remarried in 1929 and he began leaving his 11-year-old daughter from a previous marriage with Lou Gehrig's mom, Christina Gehrig, while him and his new wife would just go travel. When Christina told Babe that she felt like he was neglecting his daughter, this ended up being the end of the relationship between the Gehrigs and Babe Ruth. I'm assuming like more went down behind the scenes, but it was like the 1920s, so who really knows? But after that point, Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth had never acknowledged each other again, despite playing on the same team. So to say that Lou and Babe Ruth had their problems was kind of an understatement. Like they were best friends and then had a major falling out. When Kathy showed a photo of Lou Gehrig's parents to Christian, he confirmed that their names were Henry and Christina. Like he just knew. And not only that, but he pointed to Christina and said, "Mommy, you were her," which is just crazy. It seems like a common reincarnation theme that we choose to be reincarnated with people who we've spent other lifetimes with. I'm freaking freaked out right now. The concept of reincarnation just gives me an existential crisis every time. I know it can be beautiful. It seems so nice. Like they get to spend another life together as mother and son, theoretically, but it just creeps me out. I can't not be scared of it. I don't know. I think I would be sad to like forget this life and just move on to the next, like it was nothing. Like I don't know, it makes me really upset. I guess it's a little bit more comforting than there being just like nothing after we die. I don't know. I would love to hear you guys' thoughts on these reincarnation stories. If you guys have any personal reincarnation stories, I would love to hear them in the comments below. I know a lot of you guys like have family members and stuff who just unexplainable reincarnation stories, which are cool to listen to, but they do freak me out. So anyway, that is it for today's video. If you guys liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of these stories. Make sure you follow me on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and subscribe for new videos every week, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.